He was confused when he saw that they were going into the forest. "Woman, are you sure you know where we are going?" he asked. She assured him not to worry, saying, "I know where I'm taking you, don't worry." When she laughed, a shiver ran down the boy's spine. He clung to the lady's hand in fear, too scared to break free and run away. Where was she taking him? Robert hasn't had the easiest of months the last few months and has had to deal with a lot of things that other kids his age didn't have to. But when, despite his family's struggles, he always did what was right and asserted himself, everyone was in awe of him. Robert appeared to be far older than his 7 years, but despite his maturity, something was about to happen that day that he never expected. Robert was a son of parents Anthony and Julia Bloom and the youngest of 3 siblings. His parents have lived in Knoxville, Tennessee since birth. They had lived a peaceful and joyful life until now. They soon realized that the real world isn't always as beautiful as you think. Something happened that changed the course of her childhood forever. Robert had a 15-year-old sister a few months ago who was diagnosed with a rare disease. If Janice wanted to get well, it meant expensive treatment, which at most 3 hospitals across the country offered. To make matters worse, the diagnosis had come at the worst time for the Bloom family. Julia had been a waitress at one of the local restaurants, but had lost her job just before Janice started showing symptoms. It wasn't long before the doctor gave them a heartbreaking diagnosis a few weeks later. Julia had searched for months but still hadn't found a job, and the family was struggling to keep up with the bills. But there was more. Julia felt overwhelmed. If she ever found a job, she would have to spend more time at home with Janice because her symptoms were getting worse by the day. She also had to take care of Robert and his brother Albert. They still had to be taken to school because they lived too far from the bus route. She was desperate and felt like she was under so much pressure. There was only one thing they could think of to give them enough room to breathe again. The family had to pay for Janice's treatment, and the only thing she could think of was to take out a bank loan. But would they be able to pay it all back? Janice hated seeing her parents stressed out and didn't want them struggling with debt, so she tried to convince them she didn't need the treatment. Her symptoms can be kept in check, or she might be lucky enough to recover from the illness on her own. The doctors had told them there might be a chance of recovery, but was that true? One day, Julia and Albert had to stay at home with Janice because her symptoms had worsened. This meant Robert was left alone to go to school. During the day, he had trouble concentrating on school because he was so worried about his family. He was frustrated because, as much as he wanted to help them, he felt he was too young to do anything that would make a difference. Little did he know that his worries would soon change. Robert left the school building with a frown after the bell rang. Still reflecting on his family's struggles, he didn't realize he was walking down a street he had never seen before. He didn't fret when he noticed it and thought he knew the area well enough to find his way home. At that moment, something caught his full attention. What was it? A woman was standing in the middle of the street with a can. Robert blinked and realized the elderly woman was blind and alone, with no guide dog or anyone to help. He wondered if she needed help. He cautiously approached her before asking, "Are you all right, madam? Do you need help?" She turned to face him, and there was a moment of silence before she spoke. "Hello, my son. Yes, I could use some help. I cannot see. And I asked a man to help me get home because I'm too scared of tripping. Promised to pay him and everything. But he just took the money and ran away. I can help you if you tell me where your home is," said the boy. "Oh, that's so sweet of you, young man. Many thanks. I'll pay you so you can buy something," the woman replied and grabbed Robert's hand. "That's not necessary, missus, if you don't have to pay me," Robert said. The two made their way to the lady's house. Or that's what Robert thought. The blind lady began to walk by Robert's hand. Still, the lady seemed to know where they were going. She walked ahead of Robert, while he only had to make sure there were no obstacles in his way. But after a few minutes, Robert realized something. They were leaving the suburbs and coming into the outskirts. He looked straight ahead. They were walking towards a forest. "Woman, are you sure you know where we are going?" "We're going towards the forest," Robert asked and started to worry. Was the lady in her right mind? "Oh yes, young man, don't worry. I know where I'm taking you," the woman replied. Then she laughed. This filled Robert with anxiety. What was the lady up to? What was she up to? Should he run away or stay by her side? They wandered through the forest for a while until they finally reached what appeared to be a shelter. Then the lady let go of Robert's hand. "Would you do me a favor, son?" She said, "Could you go in there and get that garbage bag you see lying on the floor?" Heart pounding, Robert entered the shelter. He was too scared to do anything else, even though his mind kept telling him to run away. He ventured into the darkness, and then he heard the lady laugh as she walked away. In fact, Robert found the bag the lady mentioned. When he opened it, he couldn't hold back a gasp. It was full of cash. There must be millions in there. He quickly grabbed it, ran away, found his way out of the woods, and took a cab home. They couldn't hold back their tears as he showed his family what he found. That would be more than enough to pay Janice's medical bills. Robert never saw the old lady again and to this day is convinced that she was an angel disguised as a human. To protect the privacy of those depicted, some names, locations, and identifiers have been changed and are the product of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to actual events or places, or persons living or dead, is purely coincidental.